Hi Not Board Gamers and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now in today's video we are going to be reviewing one of my most anticipated games. It's finally getting released to backers, delivered to backers, and this game is of course Senjutsu Battle for Japan from Stone Sword Games, designed by Paul David Allen and by James Faulkner. It's being also distributed by Lucky Duck. Now, a few caveats on this. This game is literally, as of today, being delivered to backers. I got my big box version today, but I have had a copy for a few weeks. See, Lucky Duck sent me an early copy so I can get to play it and provide some feedback, etc. And also, I know Paul and James personally as well, and I played Senjutsu. I think I first played it about two and a half years ago, something like that, through a few different formats as well. However, I will try to be as objective as I can, but I did want to kind of be open and upfront about that. So this is, the big box version is the version I bought. It's the version I own. This is a sleeve for the game, but look at the fantastic artwork on it. And what is Senjutsu Battle for Japan? Well, it is a fighting arena style skirmish game set in feudal Japan, and you are going to choose one of the myriad and many fighters to take on other fighters in a 1 to 4 player type scenario. Now, I say 1 to 4 player because yes, it is absolutely solo build. There is a solo deck, customizable solo deck with this, and you can play against multiple AIs as well. Of course, 4 players, you can throw AIs in there, or you can just have up to 4 players, etc., and play against yourself. And it's got various amounts of terrain on there. In the standard version, most of this is cardboard. In the big box version, you get some additional miniatures, which are these kind of wonderful kind of sun drops, kind of stone washed miniatures that you can get. And there is also in the standard version, which is this version here, there is a solo campaign. And in the big box version, there are 2 solo campaigns that you can do as well. So if you want to do a campaign, it prescribes what characters you're going to use and what their card decks is going to be, and you can follow through the campaign that way. Or my preferred, and don't get me wrong, the solo campaigns are really good. My preferred way of doing it is just to set up a map with a scenario, with some fighters and some AIs designed from kind of the guidelines that they give you in the rule book, and then just see how that pans out and work out how each character works. Now, it is a deck construction game, so you get multiple choices in kind of how your character is going to react. It gives you kind of indicators and some ideas and some prescribed deck construction that you can do. But I think for those of people who really like deck construction, then there is a wealth of cards that you can choose from, really changing how your characters work and how the AIs work as well in the solo game. Now, the game says it takes about 20 minutes, and in reality, that's about right. Certainly from a solo perspective, sometimes a little bit less than that because I've been killed or managed to kill quicker than that, sometimes a little bit more than that, but 20 minutes is about right. And there, I say, there are a wealth of characters you can choose from Ronin to ninjas to samurais, etc. Construct their decks accordingly, construct an AI deck, go out there and see who wins. Setting up your terrain or whatever you want to do on there. There's big trees, there's rocks, there's carts, there's reeds, there's various maps as well. There's a huge bloody map in the big box game. You know, if you really want to play against, I don't know, maybe 4 AIs, then you could do it on this huge bloody map here, or you want to play with 4 people, do it on this huge map here, and really have an epic battle there. That will probably take over more than 20 minutes, I should imagine. But there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you through a few rounds of the gameplay, what it's about, how it plays, etc. Then I'll discuss my thoughts on the back end of it. Don't go into Senjutsu thinking that it's a game that is just about kind of rushing in and doing combat. Senjutsu is a game about waiting. It's about understanding what's in your hand, what's in your deck, understanding what your opponent may do, what their moves may be, and timing your attacks so they get with maximum effect. And that's a really interesting part about the game, and I'll talk about it more at the back end of it. Is it's unlike most other games where the combat is full on and quite frontal. In Senjutsu, you know, like you would see in the great kind of samurai movies of old, is that, you know, it's all about hanging back. It's all about waiting for that strike. If you've ever seen a film like Seven Samurai, you know that when they're fighting in that, not the big battle scenes, but when it's one-on-one, there's this tension that builds up. There's this kind of zen-like calm as you're timing those moves and positioning yourself. And that's what it is. It is a game about a deck construction game, about positional play and timed combat, and that's what makes it really, really kind of unique. So without much further ado, let me drop you down to the table. I'll show you through a few rounds on how it works, and then I'll come back at the back end and discuss my thoughts on Senjutsu, Battle of Japan from Stone Sword Games, distributed by Lucky Duck and designed by Paul David Allen and James Faulkner. Okay, so in front of me, I've got everything set out for a solo game of Senjutsu. The character I've chosen is Ronin. Here we go. And if you look at the Ronin, it tells you that its initiative is going to be 27. Right. In the solo game, that really doesn't matter, but in the multiplayer game, that's going to dictate the order of play. That will change throughout the game. It tells you that the hand size is 5, and I'll talk about hand size and how that works in a bit. It also tells you that the Ronin can take 5 wounds, any wounds above 5, and it's game over. And if you look down here, it says that the weapon options are going to be the Kanabo, the Naginata, the Nodachi, and the Yari. Okay, excuse my pronunciation if I got any of that wrong. So that tells you kind of what weapons you're going to choose. I've gone with a prescribed deck, but as say it is deck construction. You can chop and change and put anything that you need in there. Let's have a look at the Ronin miniature. Okay, so this is the kind of the miniature that comes in the big box version. The normal version, the base game, they're not kind of washed like this, but in the big box version you can see that they're washed, and they look great. And I think people who are into painting will have a lot of fun painting these miniatures. Key thing to notice on all of the bases is this arrow here, and that is the direction that you're facing. That is really important for most of your cards in terms of how you move and where you can strike, and that is on every single one as well. On every single base and every single model there is an arrow pointing forward, and that is an absolute really important point, because that kind of dictates where you're going. Now I've set up a random map here. So I've just put some bamboo on there. There we go, there's the bamboo miniature. I put some bamboo on there, and I put a couple of rocks, I put a rock on there, and also a card. That is terrain, and terrain has an effect. You can't, obviously you can't go into a square with, into a hex with terrain, but also, it also means that if you hit it, then it will have different functions. Now for solo, it gives you, and when you're playing against the AI, it gives you some cardboard standees, but if I'm taking on solo, I like to use some of the non-used miniatures, and I've got this one here, and you can see again we got an arrow just there saying the direction of travel. Now it does give you some suggested setups for the map. I have got the neoprene map up, and I just randomly put some terrain on there and then set my guys up within the kind of starting areas here. So I'm down here, the bad guys up there. So my deck, well, first of all, as a Ronin, you start with a couple of core cards. So based on the prescribed deck, I've got the Naginata Sweep and the Ronin core card. Always start with a core card, and then this is a particular weapon that they've got. These always come back to your hand. Every other card you play is going to get discarded. These always come back to your hand. And so these are my first 2 cards. Then I'm going to also draw another 5 cards as well. So my hand limit is 5 plus my 2 core cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my starting hand here. Now, when you start the game, there is an option to do a mulligan. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll explain how the cards work. Okay. So if we look on, first of all, this core card here. This tells you the direction that I'm traveling, and up here it says if I hit 2 hexes away and there, I will cause a wound. Okay. So that's how that works. There's a little asterisk there, and that means that if I spend a focus, and that's these things here, okay, then I can also strike this particular one here. It's not the same on every card. That's this one here. Okay, then, and that's an addition. That's at a speed of 5, and the speed is kind of who goes first. Then it's also got down here at a speed of 2. So for my second action, I could then move in any direction and also rotate 1 in any direction. If you see anything in a bold outline, that's that you potentially can do it. If you see anything with a solid outline, so an arrow with a solid outline, for example on this card here, that means that you have to do it. So if I was to play that card, I would have to move forward or to the right or left 1 and rotate 1. But with a white outline, it means that you may do it, okay? So we have the speed of the card there, we have the card type down here, and some keywords at the top of some cards as well. So it tells you whether it's core, it tells you kind of what card it is. This one here means it's kind of a little stack of cards. You can put that in as an opening card if you want. So my hand is my 2 core cards plus 5, and I can never go plus 5 cards. I can never go above that amount of cards, and you will potentially throughout the game you're going to potentially get some stun cards, and they are going to reduce your kind of available hand size. This here means I have to be in a red kami stance to actually play this card, and I'll explain that in a second. And this here means I have to spend a focus point to actually play that card, and you gain focus at various points throughout the game. This is also called what's called an instant addition card. This means I can add it when I've played the right card if I want. There are also some instant replacement cards where you can instantly replace the card as well. So that's kind of the cards there. They all have a mixture of kind of defensive, meditation and attack type moves basically, and you're going to have to play them in the right order and sometimes sacrifice moves to maximize what's happening on there. Down here is my kami tree, okay? So your kami tree, and it's different for each character. You're always going to start on the home gate here, and throughout the game you're going to get the opportunity to actually move kami stances, okay? And when you do, that's got arrows, so if I was going that way I'd have to go up there. I would move to that one, and that would give me red kami, and that would allow me to do cards and actions that have the red against it. Same with yellow and green. This here is how you gain focus, all right? So if I was to be able to move my kami, I was on red, I could move it up there, gain the focus and drop back down onto what I was on. If that is in the middle there, so if that was there, you'd pass straight through it and gain the focus, and that's how you gain focus. But those kami stances can be really, really kind of important in kind of how you're going to play. So that's my deck there. I've got my 2 core cards, which always come back. I've got my starting cards, my starting hand of 5, and then I've got my deck here, which I've constructed. And I say I've taken one of the prescribed constructions from the rule book, but you can do, as you get to know the game, you'll start crafting the decks yourself. Then we have the AI deck, okay, and that's these cards here, okay. And again, I've taken a prescribed AI deck and a particular character, and it's told me what cards to use in that deck, and that's what I've got here. And these are these 5 cards, and they're going to dictate the AI's movements, all right. And you're going to shuffle those, and you're going to draw those out and find out what's happening and what they're going to play. All right, so that's how the AI works, and it'll become more apparent as we play through the game. And then finally, we have the kind of AI behavior here. So this is the AI here, and this is me here. This is kind of the way in what they're going to try and attack me. These are obviously straight on. Here, they're going to try and go to my right side. Here, they go to my left side. That's going to change throughout the game. Now, there are 2 ways that you can do your AI. You can do them as defensive, which is what this is, or you can do it as an attack. And if I was to use attack, I would use the AI's other marker to do that. But I've chosen defensive for this, and that will change throughout the game. Over here, we have a number of condition cards. We have stun. They clog up your hand. So if you get stunned, they go into your hand, which obviously reduces the amount of cards, means you can't draw more cards from there. We have hobble, and what that does is that reduces your initiative. Every time you get a hobble, it reduces your initiative. At the end of your turn, you would turn it 1 to the right. When it's up, right again, you get to get rid of that. But they stack, and that's really, really powerful because that initiative can really, really matter. And then we have the wound cards, okay? So the wound cards are when you issue attacks. Now, the standard wound side means it counts as 1 wound, and if you have as many wound cards as your character's wound limit, you are defeated. So I can get a maximum of 5 of those. On the other side of that is a bleeding wound, and this remains in play. And while you have at least 1 bleeding wound card at the start of your turn, you must discard the top card from your deck face down. So that is milling through your deck. If you don't have any more cards to draw, that's it. That's the end of the game. For the AI, what that does is it kind of mills the top card. It doesn't get rid of it, but it goes through their deck quicker, and therefore they become slightly less predictable as well. There's also some poison cards as well. In the base game, there is just 1. There's more in the big box with the expansions, etc. But we'll not be coming across that on this particular go. So that's it. That's kind of how it's set up. I've set up a random map up here. I've got my cards ready. Let me just pull this down a little bit so we can see a little bit more of this. Here we go. And now, if you get the big box, there are loads of sleeves that come with it as well for your cards. I've not sleeved them because they won't show up well in this light. So without much further ado, let's kind of move into a few rounds of Senjutsu, Battle for Japan, show you how it plays and just how it's all about kind of timing your attacks and not rushing straight in. Okay, so I've zoomed in on the board a little bit, and here we go. We know that his behaviour is down the middle. He's currently facing this way. You can't see from the arrows on the camera, and I'm facing that way there. So we've got to find ways to kind of get to each other. All right. So we look at my starting hand. I have my 2 core cards, which both require me to discard a card. Then I've got an instant edition card. That's no good. I've got another instant edition card. That's no good. This is an attack card, which allows me to turn 1 and attack, but I'm nowhere near him at the moment. And this is a pommel strike, which is moving forward and attacking. And we have a feral sweep, which allows me to attack further. Unfortunately, none of those really help me. So I think I'm going to have to go right back to the beginning and use one of these cards. The first card I'm going to play is going to be this Ronin core card, which allows me, I have to discard a card, move 1 in any direction, and then rotate up to 2 if I wanted to, and then I get to either draw 2 cards, take a stun and move to any kame, or switch kame up to 1 branch. Okay, so that's the card that we're going to play, and it's a speed of 0. So obviously I should imagine his card is going to beat me. So we flip over their card, and there we go. We've got a speed of 7. Okay, which is obviously, this is an attack card now. He's in no position to attack me at all because he's right at the other side of the field. So for this particular card, what's going to happen is going to skip over that and move down to here. He's now in a position, now in a speed of 2, still faster than me. So they're going to move 1 and rotate 1. So he's here, currently wants to come straight on. So what's going to happen is they're going to move 1 in either that, or that direction. So it's the three directions in front. So I got a feeling he's going to move there, and then he's going to rotate, so his arrow is now facing towards me. That's his go done. I go back to mine here. All right, so I have to discard a card. In reality, I'm going to discard one of these instant edition cards because there's not a great deal I can do from that. And this means I get to move 1 and rotate up to 2. So I know he's favouring my front. I could go straight on. Most of my attacks are very good straight on. But I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to move there. So we'll move that. You followed them in order, by the way. So you have to go left to right. So you have to do that before you do that. And then I'm going to rotate 1 and move straight on. So we're kind of lining up for battle now. Okay. But yeah, so that's my go done. Almost. I now get to choose one of these. I'm actually going to change my kami. And I'm going to move into the red kami here. That gives me some additional stuff. Here we go. I could potentially play that as an instant add-on card if I've made an attack and it's successful. So that's good. Remember, this is one of my core cards. It's got the colour at the bottom. That comes back into my hand. That's the first round done. Now we go into round number 2. I draw back up to my hand size. So that's 5 cards plus my 2 core cards, and we're back on it. Okay. So let's see what I want to do now. So he's kind of 2 away from me at the moment. And I could assume that he's going to move forward and try and attack. He's going to move forward. And that's what I think I'm going to do, actually. I'm going to make an assumption that he's going to move forward. So I'm going to play my feral, I think, yeah. My feral sweep card. Now this is a 6. Now he's got to move a 7. He's already had a 7 out, so maybe that's not going to work. And this is where. So actually, I'm going to play a pommel strike. Okay, this would allow me, if I on speed 5, to move forward 1, or left or right 1, and then attack. If I was in green cam, I would also be able to turn. And if it's successful, I'm going to stun him. And because I'm in red kami, I would gain a focus if successful. Okay, so I'm hoping that he's got a card that's a higher speed than mine that allows him to move forward at the very least. So let's see. No, he's got a 2. So I am going to have to move first because I committed to this now, basically. So you can see his card says he's got the aggressive mind. he's going to change his behavior, which means he's going to move directions which is coming to me. He's going to move forward 2, move up to 3, and then shuffle the top fire card back into the deck. But he's going to do that second. It's my go first. My gamble didn't pay off, okay? So I can move forward 1. I'm actually going to do that, so we'll move forward 1 to there, okay? I can't do that because it's not in green. I strike, but there's nothing to strike because he's not directly in front of me, so that's not successful. However, I do gain a focus. So there we go. I've now got a focus. Damn. So now we're going to change behavior. So he's now looking to get to my right-hand side. So he wants to come down here. So when it says this, when it says kind of move 2 here, they have to move in the same direction if they move. Now, unfortunately, he can't move 2 in front of me. He can't move... he could move to the left there, but he wants to come around the right-hand side. So he's going to move 1, I believe. And then he's going to turn and go that way. So he wants to come to my right-hand side. In fact, he wants to make sure he's head-on just in case. So you do it in worst-case scenario. The worst-case scenario is he gets an attack that doesn't allow him to move, and he gets to strike straight on. So he's now facing me. It also says here to shuffle the top fire card from discard into the deck. That's this one here, this top attack card. So we know that attack that might have been a bit wasted on him before is now not wasted. So there we go. So yeah, remember that you would have to work kind of worst case scenario basically. So that's the end of that round. Remember, I'm still okay. I've got my 2 core cards. I get to draw back up to 5 just there. So we'll now have a look at the cards that we've got. This is no good for me because it requires 2 focus points. I've only got 1, so I can't play that card. He's too close to me for that, so I can't play that card. That is an instant addition card. I could do this and push 2. In fact, that's literally the only card I can do properly, other than that, if I wanted to get defensive. But I'm actually going to go for an attack and hope that he doesn't have a higher than a 4 in there. So let's see what he's got. Of course, he's got a 5, yeah? So he's going to get first and he's going to attack me now. So if we look at this here, we have his bludgeon card. It's an attack card. He can move forward if he wants to. Remember, he's coming around to favour my right-hand side and he gets to move. He gets to rotate 1 as well. So this is good for him. This actually gives him on his side. So he's going to do that. He's going to move there and then he's going to rotate 1. So he's actually facing me now. And then he's going to strike here. So I haven't drawn a defense card. So he's going to strike. He's going to issue me 1 strike, but also he's going to stun me. So I take a stun card and put that into my hand, which is obviously not great because I'm at my limit then, basically, with my stun cards. Worse, he's got a hobble on there as well. So this hobble goes here, basically. And what this means is that my initiative, or my speed, should I say, is now 1 less than what it is for future rounds, and they'll stack. That rotates, and once it's done a full rotation, it's done. So that's his turn done there, and that was quite a nasty turn for me there because he's issued me with a attack. So now it's my turn. If I look here, I can rotate 1, which is okay. So I get to rotate 1. There we go. There's that. Where's my arrow? I just lost my arrow. Boom. There it is. So I get to rotate 1, and I'm facing him, which is great. So I get to now strike. So I get to issue him with a wound as well, which is great. And I get to push 2. Well, can't push 2 because there's the end of the scenery there. So now he's going to get penalised for being pushed into the scenery. So I've done my strike, I've issued a wound, and I'm going to push him 2. I will push him 1, and he's hit that scenery there. So he's going to take a stun card now, and that gets shuffled into his deck here. So here we go. So that is in there. And of course, if he now draws that stun card, that means that it's a free go for me. However, what I can also do as well is I could play my instant additional card as well. So my attack was successful. It means I would hobble him. Okay, so how does hobble work? Again, it works exactly the same for him. It reduces his speed, and because I'm in red, I would get that. So let's play that card as well, okay? So we're going to play that card as well. That's my instant attack card, which I was allowed to play because my attack was successful. Okay, and that's going to hobble. So he's also hobbled as well. So there we go. So his speed is reduced. I'll put that hobble just there for him. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, so just know that he's hobbled and that card is there. I'm hobbled. We've both taken a wound each on this, and I have done on that particular turn. Okay, so that's done, that's done. I put my card to there. I can rotate the hobble, so we can both rotate the hobble. It's the end of the round there, and we know there's 3 more rounds left on that. Okay, and now if I look at the cards that I've got, I have my 2 core cards, and I have 4 cards here, one of them being a stun card. That means I still get the ability to draw another card. That's a key thing, is understanding when your hand starts gumming up with stun cards, is do I need to play a stun card and potentially take a hit, or is there another way that I can mill more cards to get more cards into my hands? Because sometimes your hand just isn't optimal. Okay, so now we move into the next round then. Okay, so what cards have I got now? So I'm kind of one away from him. If I have this card here we go. This is a pretty good card for me. I've got to pay 2. I can't do that. Okay, so I've got a feeling he may well try and come. No, he's going to try and block, isn't he? I've got a feeling he's going to try and block. Okay, we're going to play Feral Sweep again. So I'm going to play my Feral Sweep card. So there we go. And I know that if I go first, I get to attack him, and that's great, okay? And then when I get 1, I get to move into a different position, okay? So let's see what he's got. What's he got? He's got a block card. This is good, okay? So he's going to block me. So he's going to block at a speed. If my card was between 6 and 2, he's going to block. That means my speed was 6, so therefore he's going to block there. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to try and attack him. That's not going to happen. Had he not drawn a block card, I would have been able to attack him and issue another wound. But he hasn't, okay? But he has drawn a block card, so I can't attack him. This has also got counter on here. So what you do with counter is you turn over the top card of his deck, and if that's got an attack on there, then I take a wound. So let's have a look at that. No, it's a stun card, okay? That's got rid of his stun card. So I don't take an attack from it, so that's okay. So his counter wasn't successful, and therefore he doesn't get to stun me, and that's all right. But we look here, so we've done his move there. We've done my move, didn't work, didn't attack him. I now get this move. This allows me to move back 1, and if I was in yellow, I'd switch to red. So I can kind of just think about, he's going to come around my right-hand side. I'm just going to position myself just there and think about, I'm just creating a bit of space between us at the moment because I want some time to potentially get rid of these stun cards, okay? So that's that done. We're going to rotate those hobble cards again. If you look at the bottom of here, by the way, it does say down here, oh, he gets another one. He gets another move. It's not an or here, so he now gets to move forward and rotate 1, sorry, and rotate 1 to there, and then we reset the deck. So his deck is now reset. Whew. Here we go. I am back at my 1, 2, 3, 4. I get to draw another card and see what happens next. Ooh, unblockable. This is quite good, but I'm not quite in position. So I would, because I moved and turned. Where am I facing? I'm facing forward there. Because I moved and turned, I'm not in a position to strike him with that card. That moves forward and strikes straight on me, but it requires 2 focus. That's that. That would allow me to strike him. But do you know what? I think I'm going to play a defense card and be just a little bit safe on that. So there we go. I'm playing a defense card, which would allow me to then counter. So let's see what happens there. He's got a defense card. Okay. So I've got a speed of between 7 and 3. He's got 6 and 2. We're both down on 1, so that makes me 6 to 2, and that makes him 5 to 1. So I get to go first. That doesn't happen. In fact, none of that happens for me. And for him, what's going to happen is he's going to move forward, and then, because he can't do that, no need to block. He's going to move forward, and he's going to do this here. Okay, so we are going to change his behavior. I forgot to change behavior last time. Change behavior and reset deck, and he's going to move forward there and turn 1, and once again he's back on top of me. Okay, I'm going to reset the deck, and then we would go again. Okay, there we go. one more round, I think, and we'll see what happens. So you can see that kind of timing the cards, you know, I took an assumption he was going to try and attack me. It didn't happen. So we go back to my deck here. We got 2, 3, 4. I get to draw another card back up to here. Okay. Now, so I've got 2 of these ox and barge here, which is no good for me because it requires me moving forward 1. If I collide with him, effectively we both, I think we both take a stun or a wound, and it ends the turn there. So I've got to think about what I can do, and in reality, none of these help me. So I'm going to have to go with this card, which means, I don't know, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play my stun card, which means I don't effectively get a go, and I'm running the risk of being attacked here and taking a hit. But let's see what happens. I forgot to turn the hobble. There we go. I always forget the hobble. And his card is he's got a block. Okay, so he's got a block, which doesn't matter. So he goes down to the next one, which is change AI behavior. So he's going to go to my other side now, if possible. And he gets to move forward 1 if necessary, or turn. So he's facing me for a strike. None of that matters. We can reset the deck again. Then that's the thing, you know, sometimes with these cards you can get the same card coming out a few times, but with some good shuffles it won't. I'm here, I've got rid of that stun. That means I now have the ability to start building up my deck again, so I can get a stronger hand. And there we go. The next one is downforce. We have 2 Oxbridge. We have an instant attack, instant addition card, and we have that card as well, which again, because he's right on top of me and no good to me, so I'd have to do something to try and get into a position where I can do that. Repositioning yourself is vitally, vitally important. Those hobble cards have done their full rotation. That's kind of how it goes until you've taken your number of wounds, which is 5, or he's taken his number of wounds, which on a single solo AI they recommend 7, 2 AIs 5, 3 AIs 3, etc. And once they've done that, once you deliver the prerequisite or the required number of wounds, that's it, that's game over. And you can see that understanding that flow of the deck, understanding when to play the cards, anticipating their hand is a key part of this. We didn't even touch on kind of going into the scenery and the terrain and understanding what happens there. And this is just from a random scenario I've set up. Excuse me, bearing in mind there are solo scenarios. It does play up to 4 people as well. So much scope for this game. I absolutely adore Senjutsu. Okay, so there we go. That was kind of a few rounds of Senjutsu. Now, that was kind of a pared down version because generally I really prefer to play against at least 2 AIs. It provides more of a challenge. And I was using the prescribed deck. I have played it enough times now where I'm starting to think about what I want in a deck, what I want my character to do, what weapons they've got, whether they're a distance, a range, or a melee fighter, whether the AIs are ranged or melee, etc., because the AIs can have different configurations as well. But that was just to give you an overview on kind of how the card play works. I think I did one thing wrong, but that's okay. It's very difficult when you're kind of trying to do things live on camera. Sometimes you make mistakes. But yeah, look, I love Senjutsu. I say I've played this a number of times throughout its iteration from when I first played it a couple of years ago, and it's got better and better with every iteration. There are quite a few arena style combat skirmish games, whatever you want to call them, out on the market at the moment. Of course, kind of the granddaddy being for a lot of multiplayers or 2 players, etc., is going to be the Unmatched series, which has now got the solo version coming out with the next release. So when Paul and James kind of developed and designed Senjutsu, they had to come up with something that first of all felt different, and Senjutsu really does. A lot of the tactical skirmish arena type games, it's all about kind of going in and trying to maximize hits almost straight away and wiping out as quickly as possible. Senjutsu is almost the complete antithesis of that. As I mentioned at the beginning, Senjutsu is about timing, it's about waiting, it's about understanding your character, how your character plays, how those cards, what cards could potentially come out not only for you but for your opponents as well. Timing when you're going to play your cards, understanding that yes, you may mill your deck a little bit and that could have negative effects because you can get to the bottom of your deck, but it's absolutely critical at times when you've got a hand of cards, and your combat is either going to be ranged or melee or close by, and your hand doesn't suit that. You've got to find a way to get through that. So timing the playing of those stun cards, sacrificing a wound to kind of get a better card in your hand or reposition yourself is really, 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 really important. And I mentioned kind of the Akira Kurosawa films and things like Seven Samurai, etc., when the one-on-one combat is purely about timing, and that's exactly what Senjutsu is. You get the most out of this game by not going full Leroy Jenkins, by just understanding what cards you've got, what the strengths of your characters are, what their weapons are, and when best to play things. Map is, it's purposefully small. It's not a huge game. It takes no time at all to set up. Once you've sorted out your deck construction, it takes no time to set up. And the possibilities are endless. You can combine different maps together. You have big maps, you have additions to maps that you can put on there. You can put different terrain on there. You can play multiple AIs. You can try different characters. The possibilities are endless. And then from a solo perspective, to link it with, in the big box, 2 solo campaigns, in the small box, 1 solo campaign, means that you can play this game so many times and have a massively different experience every single time. And if you enjoy the game, that's going to be absolutely crucial for you as well, is because you want to have that feeling. And I think one of the things about the solo mode, and it was always kind of in there from the beginning. I played it early in the early stages. I played a solo mode. It's changed quite a bit since then, but it's changed since then. It's always been part of the game, having the ability to play solo. It's great for 2 things. The first thing is, obviously from a solo perspective, you've actually got a skirmish game where you feel like you're fighting against a character that's got a particular moveset. You can't learn that move. You can learn it, but you can't game it, so to speak, because you don't know what cards are going to come out. And, you could add more cards to the solo deck if you wanted to. My deck had, that AI had 5. You could add more in there and create some more kind of thematic variability, because there's a wealth of solo cards to choose from. So you can make your solo AI harder or easier for you. So you've got that going from a solo perspective, is endless amounts of possibility, completely suited to a solo gamer. From a multiplayer perspective, because it's deck construction, and you have again a wealth of cards that you can choose to either use the prescribed deck construction or put your own spin on there, you can test out strategies. You can find out how your fighter works, and you can, by doing it solo is a great way to actually understand the moves, the potential for your fighter, how honed you can get it. You can do that on the solo there. So the solo works from 2 perspectives. As I say, from pure solo game perspective, love it. From a multiplayer perspective, the more you play it, the more you'll hone those decks and absolutely do that. And I think it is kind of the theme running through this, the cultural sensitivity running through this, the way that Paul and James designed everything, not just around making a really exciting solo and multiplayer skirmish game that felt like nothing else, but making it feel absolutely on point was key and critical. I know they employed cultural consultants to make sure that everything kind of fitted within what it needs to do. Now, I'm sure that there are some historical inaccuracies in here, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't take liberties in any massive sense. It stays faithful to the feudal Japanese era that it's in, and that is really, really important as well, because it would be a shame to have a game like this that then kind of eschewed what it should do to maintain that kind of level of credibility. So, let's talk about deck construction now. Now, deck construction, it is a deck construction game. If deck construction isn't your thing, then this game is not going to be for you. I'm generally not a huge deck construction fan. It's one of the main reasons I do not I don't enjoy Marvel Champions, because of the element of deck construction that's in there, and the fact you've got to buy additional models and additional packets, etc. Additional packets to get the cards and make your characters stronger. Well, everything that you need is going to be in the base box for the key characters, and then with the additional characters that come in the big box, it's all going to be there. You are going to get the most out of this by understanding an element of deck construction. By all means, go with the prescribed decks if you just want to do that. And my advice to you when you get the game is make up some prescribed decks for each character as well, not necessarily your AIs, but for each character, and that way they're always there, because It does take a while to kind of build these decks, and there are instructions within the instruction book on how to do it, of course. But if you are into deck construction, this is going to be absolutely key for you. And I think this is a potential huge strength for Senjutsu. Is I would like to see a competitive scene for Senjutsu. I think there is a massive amount of scope for a competitive Senjutsu scene. Why is it important to solo? Well, as I mentioned, you can hone your skills on solo, you can hone your deck on solo, you can create those characters and move it forward. And I think when you are starting to kind of play with similar skilled players, then understanding how those decks work and constructing your deck and then playing it against somebody who's doing that equally is going to be really, really, really exciting for players as you're anticipating moves, you're pulling back, you're moving forward, you're sidestepping, you're using the terrain, you're using the bounds of it, etc. So you don't, because you go out of bounds, you get a stun card. Using all of that to your advantage, you're using those sacrificing by understanding how those deck works. And I'd really, really like to see a competitive scene for Senjutsu. As a solo game, it's bizarre, but it's something I'd actually be interested in potentially being part of as well, because I think it has that massive amount of scope, and I really hope that it lands in the way that it needs to land and should land, given everything that's gone into the game, to create that competitive scene. And also, what that also allows you to do in terms of deck construction from a solo perspective is, as I say, just create new characters. Create new ways for your characters to fight. Test them out on the map. Create new solo AIs and ways that they're going to do. Your options are absolutely limitless, and that deck construction is key, but you've got to like deck construction for it as well. And not everybody likes deck construction. That is potentially something going against it. Now, I think when you look at the sheer amount of content, both in the base game and in the big box, there's just loads in there. And to fit all that into a very well-priced package is a really masterstroke for Stone Sword and for Paul and James as well. Because if you're just buying the core box, I can't remember the price, maybe 40, 50 quid, something like that. There's tons of playability in there for 1 to 4 players. You're going to continue to play that. I'm really glad I also opted for the big box, because all the amount of miniatures, the additional cards, the additional expansions that you get in there means that I can do loads with my Senjutsu journey. And I must have played this since I got it, since I got the early release copy, maybe 25 times, and I've played it a number of times prior to that as well. And I'm still barely scratching the surface on what can be uncovered in Senjutsu. And I think that's really important, is you want a game that is just going to continue to deliver and deliver and deliver for you. So there's so much to like about Senjutsu. It is like a really, really fantastic area combat skirmish game. It's completely unique in how it feels. Just the ability to hang back, plan your move, anticipate, and then try and deliver those like critical or killer blows is absolutely fantastic. But not everything is a bed of roses with Senjutsu. But first of all, because of how it is deck construction, and when you start messing around with those decks and start creating your own decks, it can be a little bit swingy. And that can be off-putting for people, because I've had games where I've absolutely trounced the AI straight away, set it up again with the same deck that I've constructed myself, and then been trounced by the AI. And despite what I've done, I've just not been in a position. You can see from this game, it was getting quite close, and I maybe needed to make a decision to start pulling back from that. But do bear in mind that it can be a little bit swingy at times, and that can be off-putting for people. And certainly if it's your first experience and you go into a game and you get instantly defeated, or you instantly win them, you can be like, well, what's wrong here? That does balance out the more you get to understand the decks and constructing the characters, but that swinginess can be a little bit off-putting for some people as well. There's certain things that are just a bit of a pain for me as well, like the hobble mechanism. So yes, it's a stacking mechanism. You turn it, it reduces your speed for that deck, but invariably I forget to do that. I forget to turn the hobble card, or I forget to apply it, and it just feels a little bit fiddly, because sometimes there's a lot going on in the game. It feels a little bit fiddly. So there may be a better way of tracking hobble, and I just need to think about that, maybe using a dice or whatever, I don't know, to track how many it's done. Just have to think about that, because as they stack, they can become 2, 3 or 4 hobbles on the bounce, and therefore you're reducing your speed by those down to a minimum of 1. But it can be just a little bit fiddly there as well. Integrating some of the cards against the AI, some of your cards against the AI, you sometimes have to make a few judgment calls on that, because it will say the AI will do X, Y, or sorry, your opponent would do X, Y, or Z. It's not always applicable to the AI. So there's just a few things that, while you're not dovetailing them into there, you just have to make those kind of concessions for, and understand that the AI works kind of for 95, 98, 99% of everything. There's just some things that you're going to have to make that decision for. However, if you consider that thought that, you know, you should always make the choice that's worst for you, that does help you overcome some of that, but that can be a little bit kind of, say, not quite as smooth as it could be. Now, one of the key gripes that I think everybody will find is the rule book. And it is comprehensive. You've got some kind of 30-odd, 40-odd, 38 pages in there with the main game rules and then the solo rules at the back end of it. It does tell you most things, but unfortunately it does omit some stuff as well. I do know that Stone Sword and Lucky Duck are creating FAQs and making it easier for people to overcome the rules, but they feel a little bit like they were designed and proofread by people who already knew the game. Now, I played the game a number of times and I still had questions when I got my copy a few weeks ago. So if I had questions, then of course other people will have questions. However, there is a living document that Stone Sword are putting out that will answer a lot of those kind of questions for you and start to make it a lot easier. But, you know, stick with it, because the kind of, you know, the end journey is definitely worth it. I would highly recommend going and checking out Ricky Boyle's series of videos on Senjutsu, because Ricky and I were in discussion with the designers and with Lucky Duck over the last few weeks about kind of the stuff that we come across didn't quite work from the rule books. It's a bit of a shame, because as comprehensive and as big as they are, they don't actually cover some of the stuff. For example, the hobble cards, doesn't say in there that they stack. It's implied on here that they stack. It doesn't say that they stack in there. So you just have to be mindful of that. Also, when you reveal your speed, then if something happens, they move into a position. Anyway, you have to go with what's on there. So I think what you've got to do is just go through the rules, potentially watch Ricky's videos. In reality, it's not a hard game to understand once you've got everything down. But the rule book doesn't do the best job of explaining that, and you've just got to be mindful of that. One other thing that may not be to people's taste is the sheer amount of icons that are on here. And it does take a wee bit of time to get used to the various icons on the cards and understand how each icon interacts with other icons. You know, there are a couple of reference cards that you can use which do explain most of them, but not all of them. And you may have to search through the rule book to kind of really get to grips on how each one works. However, once you put that investment in, it starts to become quite second nature. But getting to grips with them early, it can be a little bit difficult. And there's certain things that I potentially would recommend that you don't try to do early on. For example, some of the instant cards is potentially, you know, if you got them, maybe mill them out of your deck, or don't use the instant replacement cards, and just play the game with kind of the icons that you understand to start off with, and then start introducing the new mechanisms. And that's probably an easier way to get into it, is play the cards for their kind of face value, if you like, forgetting about any of the instant stuff and the cards that you can put into your deck at the beginning, etc., and just play the game, understand the flow of the game, then introduce those mechanisms. Starts to be a little bit easier to then understand. And once you've played a few games and you've done that, and you've introduced those mechanisms, it all starts to make sense. But getting to grips with the icons and finding them in the rule book is a little bit problematic, and understanding the interplay between them can be a little bit problematic as well, but you will get over that. Similarly, from the solo AI perspective, you know, you've got things to understand, like their behavior and also their stance. Are they defensive? Are they offensive? Etc. It can be a little bit confusing at first. Again, play them, maybe do the behavior thing, but don't worry about the stances too much. And then once you've got used to how the AI plays and what you have to do with the AI, then start introducing those additional rules and feed them into you. It's probably the best way to do it, because if you try and do everything at once, there's a lot of icons, a lot of different things that you've got to get to grips with the AI, and it can get a little bit confusing. But put the time in, put those games in. Each game is going to be 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's not going to be a massive time investment. Very easy to reset. And then you can kind of jump straight, you can start introducing those rules and get the most out of it as well. So I think, is it a game for everybody? Obviously not. Some people just don't like arena combat arena combat or skirmish games, etc. Some people really don't like deck construction. It's not my preferred type of game, but I really enjoy it in Senjutsu. And the fact that the rule book can be a little bit off-putting to start off with is, that may be a point to consider for some people. As I say, I do know that Stone Sword and Lucky Duck are working on a robust FAQ and help section, so keep in touch with all the forums, etc. Because those will be overcome, questions will be answered. The more people ask those questions, what wasn't clear for them, the easier it becomes for everybody to do that, and it'd be great to see that living document kind of expand to cover all eventualities. But that is kind of surface stuff in reality. If you like the idea that you've got a very different feeling arena combat game, you've got a very different feeling skirmish game, you've got a game that's got endless possibilities where you can play through solo scenarios, you can set up your own maps, you can have bigger maps, you can add onto maps, you can play with up to 4 people, if not more, on the huge ginormous map, that you can, as a solo gamer, add additional AIs in there. As a multiplayer, you can add AIs in there. It just creates this really, really rounded package that hits so many things right for me that I forgive it for some of the stuff like the rulebook, like the iconography, etc. I forgive it those things because I know that the game itself is worth it, and certainly worth it for me. Look, I highly recommend Senjutsu, A Battle of Japan. I think it's fantastic. I've loved it from day one. I think when I first played it, the comment that I said to James and Paul, kind of 2 years ago, whenever it was, which they can't use on any of the posters, was this game is effing awesome. And it is an awesome game. I feel like I'm taking part in a samurai style, in a feudal Japanese skirmish, battle, fight, whatever you want to call it, where I'm not kind of rushing in and just trying to hack bits off everybody straight away, where I'm biding my time, I'm understanding what my character does, I'm learning what my opponent does, and I'm adjusting accordingly. I'm moving back, I'm moving forward, I'm taking hits, making sacrifices to get the bigger picture. All of that really, really works for me. I think they've done it. They've knocked it out of the park in terms of the gameplay, the feel of the gameplay, the positional play on it, in terms of the maintaining true to the cultural references in there as well, in terms of the sheer amount of gameplay that's in the box, in terms of catering for solo gamers in a way that, sometimes some games just don't do that. They've thought about solo every way through this by providing the campaigns and the adaptive AI, etc., and having the ability to change those AI. Look, I think it's an absolutely exceptional game. It's got some flaws and it's not going to be for everybody. But I think, for my taste, it's an absolutely exceptional game. I'm more than happy to set this up and play 3, 4, 5 games on the bounce, trying different strategies, trying different techniques, because I enjoy it that much. I would love, as I said earlier on, to see a competitive element to this, have a competitive scene for this. I think it's got so many legs, so much legs. It's got a huge amount of legs for a competitive scene on this. And I think the more people play it, the more they will get out of it, the more we will see, hopefully, that competitive scene grow. And I really hope that if you're getting this and you've got this, and you play it enough, that you really start to see just how wonderful a game it is, how well designed and crafted it has been, and how you can overcome some of the flaws to really get to the essence of what is an exceptional game of positional play, tactical fighting, understanding your character, understanding your opponent, and acting accordingly, waiting, moving, striking, backing off. Absolutely beautiful. I love Senjutsu Battle for Japan. I highly recommend it. Bear in mind all of the caveats I've said. The fact I know the guys, the fact I've been involved in it, the fact I'm named in the rulebook, and I got my name in the rulebook in special thanks, etc. Take all of those caveats, and the fact that there are some flaws in the game, and the fact it is deck construction and it's not going to be for everybody. However, for me, it's a home run. It just absolutely works on nearly every single level. I adore Senjutsu Battle for Japan. If it strikes a chord with you, I say it's just being delivered to backers at the moment. Lucky Duck are doing the distribution for it, so it will be available in retail. Look, I think I've waxed lyrical enough about it now. I adore it. I think it's a fantastic game. If you're receiving it now, then you're in for a real treat for it. Bear in mind, everything I've said, it's not going to be for everyone. But the sheer amount of content you get, not only in the base game, but in the big box, and everything that comes with it, the wonderful miniatures. I just love Senjutsu. It's an awesome, awesome, awesome game. One of the best releases of this year. So thank you very much for joining me on this journey through the solo version of Senjutsu Battle for Japan from Stone Sword Games, distributed by Lucky Duck, designed by Paul David Allen and James Faulkner. It's hitting backers now. It'll be available in retail soon. If it feels of interest to you all, then you need to find out a way to get your hands on a copy. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out our other videos. And one final thought. If you can't find anyone else to play with, then there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye-bye.